All right, let's dive in. We're about to unpack an incredibly detailed prophetic theory, one that ties together ancient scripture, American symbols, and a very specific timeline for the future. It's a huge puzzle, and in this explainer, we're going to lay out every single piece exactly as the source material presents it. Everything kicks off with this one really cryptic phrase. You'll find it in the biblical books of Daniel and Revelation. Now, for centuries, people have been trying to crack its code. Is it literal? Is it symbolic? Well, the source we're exploring says it's neither of those things. Instead, it's a precise mathematical key. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to decode that biblical phrase. Then, get this, we'll see how the very same math is supposedly hidden on the US dollar bill. From there, we'll look at America's proposed role in all this, figure out who the people at the center of the prophecy are, and finally, lay out the full timeline that leads all the way to the year 2034. Okay, first things first, we have to unlock the countdown. This is really the foundation for the entire theory. And believe it or not, it all comes down to redefining one single, very crucial word.
Right off the bat, you can see just how different the scale is here. I mean, a lot of interpreters look at this phrase and see just 3.5 years. But the source material? It proposes something completely different. A calculation that stretches a few years into almost 2,000.
So, how in the world do we get to a number that big? Well, the key is the specific Hebrew word for time used in the original text, moed. The source argues this isn't just any time, it's a specific, appointed period. And it connects this period to the 430 years the Israelites spent in Egypt, which was a foundational, appointed time in their history.
And that number, 430, becomes our base unit. So according to this interpretation, one time is equal to exactly 430 years. Next up, you have the plural times. The source here says this means a multiple of 3. So you take our base of 430, multiply it by 3, and you get 1,290 years. Simple enough. And finally, half a time is pretty straightforward. It's just half of our base unit, which comes out to 215 years. So you add it all up, 430 plus 1290 plus 215, and it gives us a grand total prophetic period of 1,935 years. This is the exact length of the countdown we're tracking.
Now, a countdown doesn't mean much without a starting point, right? The source pinpoints the start to the year 81 AD, right when Christian persecution began under the Roman Emperor Domitian. And if you add 1,935 years to 81 AD, you land exactly on the year 2016. Now, you're going to want to remember that year. It is very, very important as we go on.
Okay, so now let's see how this theory gets even more interesting. We're going to shift gears from ancient texts to a modern symbol you've probably seen thousands of times, the Great Seal of the United States, right there on the back of the dollar bill.
The source says there's a hidden calculation hiding in plain sight. You start with 1776, written right on the base of the pyramid. Then the theory assigns a value of 20 years to each of the 12 levels of stones on that pyramid. So 12 times 20 gives you 240 years. You add that to 1776, and where do you end up? The exact same year, 2016. Is that just a wild coincidence or a coded confirmation?
So you might be asking, why the focus on an American symbol? Well, according to this interpretation, the United States isn't just some random country in the story. It actually plays a central prophesied role in this whole cosmic drama. Here's the core analogy. The source suggests that Europe, which represented a place of religious persecution, became a kind of symbolic Egypt, and in turn, the United States became the prophesied wilderness, a place of refuge divinely prepared for people to escape to. These connections are pulled straight from the book of Revelation. You have this woman who is said to represent God's people, and she flees into the wilderness. To get there, she's given 2 wings of a great eagle, which the source connects directly to the American bald eagle on the Great Seal. And this wilderness is described as a temporary safe place, away from the dragon, which is identified as the Roman Empire and all the powers that followed it. This, of course, brings up a massive question. Who exactly are these people that the prophecy is about? The answer that the source material gives is very specific.
And honestly, for a lot of people, it's pretty surprising.
So here's the central claim. The subjects of this prophecy, the woman from Revelation, the holy people from Daniel, are not just spiritual descendants, but the actual genetic descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. These were the tribes who were scattered almost 3,000 years ago and basically blended in with other nations. The argument is that true Christians are, in fact, these lost Israelites found.
And this is where the theory presents what it sees as a powerful piece of confirming evidence. The source points to two totally separate prophetic clocks that it claims both stop in the exact same year, 2016. We've already looked at the first one, the 1,935-year period of refuge. But the second one is a prophesied 2,730-year punishment for those lost tribes. And according to the source, if you start that clock at their final exile in 715 BC, it also lands you right on 2016.
So with these two different paths leading to the same year, 2016. The source claims that this year marked a huge shift. It wasn't the end of the world, but the beginning of the final act. And that brings us to the culminating timeline of future events.
Okay, so according to this timeline, 2016 kicked off a final 7-year period known as Daniel's Week. That period then wrapped up in 2023, starting what the source calls Christ's invisible reign. The timeline then projects forward. Around 2027, the fifth seal of Revelation is opened, which is a period tied to martyrdom. Then, around 2030, an event called the Seizing of Sacrifice triggers a final 1,290-day countdown. And this all leads to a culmination around the year 2034, with a period of Great Tribulation and the Second Coming.
And to back up that 2034 date, the source points to one more calculation. It takes a 120-year biblical lifespan and interprets it as the length of a final generation. It then starts this 120-year clock with the beginning of World War I in 1914, which it calls the beginning of sorrows. And that, too, brings us to the same endpoint, 2034.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's this. According to this incredibly intricate web of interpretation, we aren't waiting for some future event to trigger the end times. The final countdown has already started. The sequence of events leading to the prophesied end is, by this logic, already happening. And that really just leaves us with a final thought to chew on. You know, regardless of what you make of this specific timeline, it's a pretty powerful example of a very deep human impulse. It kind of makes you wonder, how do these ancient texts and even our own national symbols continue to shape our search for meaning and how we try to understand the future? It's definitely something to think about.